of dialogue writing. First, we will understand what is a dialogue writing. Then, we will look into the steps to write a dialogue. And finally, we will understand it with an example. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, what is a dialogue? A dialogue is a verbal conversation between two or more people. It simply means talk between two or more people. Why dialogue writing is important to learn? There are two main reasons for it. Number one, it makes us understand the colloquial way of talking English. Now, what is this term colloquial? It means how English is used in ordinary or familiar conversation and not a bookish way. And number two, it trains us to express our thoughts in easy and natural construction. Please remember these 2 points in mind. Now, what are the important characteristics of a dialogue? There are basically 5 important characteristics of any dialogue. Number 1. Spontaneous. It should not be premeditated, meaning it should not look like it is thought out or planned beforehand. Number 2. Natural or realistic. Now, how will we make it natural? We need to make sure 2 things are there in the dialogue. Number 1. It should be in direct speech. And number 2. Exclamations and questions need to be added so that it looks natural. Third characteristic of a dialogue is it must be interesting. We need to try to make it as interesting as possible. Special attention should be taken care of in the opening sentences and conclusion. It should not be dull or boring. Number 4. Impartial. Remember, it's a dialogue and not a monologue where one person speaks and others listen. We need to give equal chances and keep the ball rolling. And number 5. Concise. The whole conversation should be brief and questions and replies as concise and pointed as possible. So these are the 5 important characteristics of any dialogue. Now let's look into the steps to be followed for writing a good dialogue. Step number 1. Imagine. You need to imagine the characters and their point of view. To do this, you must have in your mind a clear idea of the imaginary persons taking part in the conversation to make them speak in character. Step number 2. Outline. After imagining the characters and their thought process, the next step is to jot down briefly the arguments or opinions of each of them. Remember to add at least 5 dialogues of each of the speakers. And number 3. Arrange. After outlining, arrange these ideas in some logical order so that the conversation is in a proper flow. After arranging, write the dialogue neatly and properly after editing. Remember that the 5 important characteristics of dialogue that we just learned should be present in it. Now, let's understand these steps by an example. The question is, write a dialogue between a student and a teacher. The student has just given exams of 10th board and waiting for results to come. Let's start with the first step, which is imagination, and step 2, which is outlining, as they will go hand in hand. Here, we are having 2 characters, a student who has just given the 10th exams and a teacher. Let's put ourselves in student's point of view. What will he be thinking? As per the marks I get, I will select the stream. If I get good marks, probably more than 80%, I will select science. The next option would be commerce, and last but not likely possible, arts. My parents are also forcing me to get good grades so that I can select science. Also, I will see what my friends are selecting, so I will get their company as well. Now, let's put ourselves in teacher's point of view. What will he be thinking? I know that like other students, he might also be brainwashed, and based on marks, he might be selecting the stream. I will try to convince him to choose the path properly and offer him proper guidance. So these are the point of view of both the characters, and we have outlined the points as well of both of them. The third step is to arrange this point logically. We need to keep in mind 5 characteristics a dialogue must have. The final copy of the dialogue will be like this. Teacher, what are you planning to do after passing your 10th board? Student, sir, it would totally depend on the marks I get. Teacher, have you set up any criteria based on the marks? Student, yes sir, I will select the science stream if I get more than 80%. In case if I secure more than 60%, I will select commerce. And the last option is arts, which is less likely to happen. Teacher, so you will be choosing your future based on the traditional way. But let me tell you, you are going in the wrong direction. Student, oh, but why sir? This is the usual way in which anyone selects the stream. In fact, my dad is forcing me to secure good grades so I can select the science stream. Teacher, yes, you are correct in this regard that it is the traditional way of thinking. But things have changed a lot nowadays. Student, how sir? We have been hearing all this time that based on the marks, you should select your career path. All my friends are also going to select the stream in this way only. Please explain me your thoughts in more depth. Teacher, the most important thing that I would suggest is stop following your friends and don't come under any pressure from family. You choose the stream which you are most passionate about rather than doing what your friends are doing or parents are saying or merely on the marks. There are plethora of career options after 10th. I have a reference of a career guide. Please do consult with him to clarify all your doubts. Student, sir, you have pushed my thought process in an opposite and correct direction. I am suffering from the points that you just mentioned. I will definitely contact the sir whose reference you will give and try to clarify my doubts. Thanks a lot for helping me out, sir. So this is the whole dialogue between the student and teacher. I hope you are clear how you need to write a dialogue. Now I will give you an exercise for a dialogue writing to practice. The question is, write a dialogue between two boys, one of whom is habitually hopeless and thinks that luck is against him, whereas the other is of a more practical turn of mind. Please prepare a dialogue based on the understanding that we just had and write your answers in the comment section. That's all about dialogue writing in this video. Let's quickly revise what we learned in this lesson. First, we understood what is a dialogue. A dialogue is a verbal conversation between two or more people. It simply means talk between two or more people. Then we learned two main reasons to learn the art of dialogue writing. Number one, it makes us understand the colloquial way of talking English. And number two, it trains us to express our thoughts in easy and natural constructions. Then we learned the 5 important characteristics of a good dialogue, which are: it should be spontaneous, it should be natural or realistic, it should be interesting, it should be impartial, and it should be concise. After that, we learned the 3-step formula to write a dialogue. The steps are: number 1, imagine. You need to imagine the character and their point of view. Number 2, outline. The next step is to jot down briefly the argument or opinions of each of them. And number 3, arrange. The final step is to arrange these ideas in some logical order. And we understood this step with an example. Finally, I gave you an exercise to practice, whose answers you will be giving me in the comment section.